Welcome to government contracting. If this is your first time to hear about the terminology government contracting, you don't need to worry because by the time we are done today with this little presentation, you will have an idea of what government contract is, what is government contracting, as well as the various types of government contracts there are, as well as some government contract terminologies. Who is a government contractor? Types of government contractors. Who can be a government contractor? And even some advantages of being a government contractor. And we will be also discussing some strategies within the sphere, of government contracting. But most specifically, we will be focusing on one specific kind of strategy, which is the middleman strategy, from the various types of strategies we will be mentioning. Also, we will be looking at some strategies as well that can make you a successful middleman. I'm sure that is why we are all here. So, with that out of the way, what is government contracting? Government contracting refers to a process whereby a government or a governmental agency enters into an agreement with companies, organizations, or individuals to purchase goods, services, or work for a negotiated price, meaning the price has to be agreed upon between the government and said companies, organizations, or individuals. That being said, though, what exactly is a government contract? Because we know government contracting is that process whereby the government enters into an agreement. So that agreement is what is a government contract. The government contract is that legal agreement between the government and businesses or individuals. However, government contracting is that process whereby the government enters a government contract agreement. If that makes sense. One more time, let's take it back a little bit. A government contract is the legal agreement between a government and an individual, an organization, or a company for the provision of either goods, services, or for some work to be done, all at a negotiated price. Government contracting, it is that process whereby the government enters into a government contract. So we will be discussing today about government contracting, not a government contract. Just so we are clear. We will be discussing government contracting. So what are some key aspects of government contracting we should be paying attention to today? One, as we earlier mentioned, it will be public needs. These are basically, a public need is what sends the government into the market to begin with, to start soliciting help generally from the general public. Another term we will be looking at, or another aspect, is bidding. Bidding is very, very vital when it comes to government contracting, because this is part of the process where the government, after sending out the proposal, waits for interested contractors to submit their bids or their potential proposal in response to its solicitation. So what the government puts out as a request is known as a solicitation. It is soliciting for help from the general public. And what individuals, companies, and organizations send in as being interested to fulfill this government need is known as a proposal or a bid. So there are some government contracts that don't require you to submit a proposal, They just require you to bid on them. You just have to bid. Some do request a proposal, like an entire proposal. You have to write out why you think you're a good fit, why the government should consider you, not just numbers. So that's another key aspect we should be looking out for. Another one too, it's about regulation and compliance, or better still, regulatory compliance. We have to note that as we know, the government is all about bureaucracies, and as we know, bureaucracies have a lot of rules and regulations, and these rules and regulations are basically what governs government contracting. And believe it or not, they are very, very, very strict with these rules. They are very, very strict with these rules. And so we will be paying keen attention to what some of these rules are later on down. Also, what are some of the various types of contracts there are? These are some other key aspects of government contracting, because there are different kinds of contracts. You would have some contracts are fixed priced, some are cost reimbursements, and some are time and material. Each is tailored differently, if that makes any sense. Each is tailored differently, and not just differently, most of them are tailored based on the needs that the government is looking for. So that is very important. The type of contract reflects the kind of need. Furthermore, we will be focusing on some of the advantages, if there are any, and basically advantages of being a government contractor, or the advantages of government contracting, as well as some of the challenges that we face. So, and what are small business programs with regards to government contracting? Small business. Just so you would know, an economy like the United States, as big as it is fueled by small businesses. Majority, that's like 80%. So basically, small businesses are the backbone of most economies, and the United States is no exception to that. So government contracting, whether you like it or not, offers an avenue, for small businesses to stay afloat, to be profitable, and to basically just, it's like a bloodline, a lifeline for small businesses in the economy. It helps them. But mind you, not every small business is savvy when it comes to government contracting. For the most part, I think it's just right now that government contracting is becoming very prevalent. Up to this point, government contract was seen as a niche, and somehow I still think it's still a niche, Majority of the population is not aware of it, and even the potentials there is in it. But that's exactly what we are here for. That's exactly what we will be looking out for. So, what are some of the key terminologies or key terms in government contracting? What are some of these terms that we need to pay close attention to? So, one of which, it's in no particular order, mind you, but some of the key terms we'll be talking about, and if you do decide to get into this space, into this sphere, some of the terms you will run into on a regular basis is NAICS, also known as NAICS. So NAICS stands for the North American Industry Classification System. And the NAICS is important, as we will be seeing down the line. It is very crucial when it comes to government contracting. So some key terms we should be looking out for is NAICS. We should be looking out for RFP, which is a request for proposal. And a request for proposal basically is similar to an RFQ, a request for quotation. Basically, it's just a system wherein the government is straightforwardly just asking the general public or the potential pool of government contractors for different quotations and proposals so it can have a better understanding of what the market looks like before it sends out a solicitation. So this is like an information gathering process, like what you're doing right now. Before you want to get into government contracting, you want to first of all have some idea of what government contracting is. So the RFP and the RFQ is the government's own way of looking at the market, see where the market is at and see how it can draft up its solicitation and gauge what potential contractors should be able to provide it, if that makes sense. IFB, invitation to bid. Not every company gets this. This is very interesting because for the most part, the government sends out a solicitation and the general public just bids, However, there are instances where the government itself reaches out to you. You didn't send in a proposal, you didn't send in a bid. The government reaches out to you specifically and say, hey, I would like for you to bid on this. That means the government, after doing its request for proposal, request for quotations, the government has gone behind the scene and done its own research, and they see you as a potential fit for that specific solicitation. They see you so much to say in a light of qualified to meet a specific government need. So a government would send out an IFB to you, inviting you to bid on a specific solicitation. Sometimes it is closed from the general public, Sometimes it's just a pool of qualified companies or individuals that the government invites to bid. So not everybody is usually open to this pool. So that's another term in government contracting. Depending on how far you go into your journey, you can just receive an IFB, So another term to look out for will be the GSA. The GSA, also known as the General Schedule, the General Service administration. So the term is normally GSA schedule, you know. It's also known as the Federal Supply Schedule or multiple award schedule, that is MAS. It's a long-term government-wide contract, you know, where the government goes into a contract with commercial firms that provide access to millions of commercial products, you know, and services. But more specifically, the government uses the GSA for its economies of scale because nobody has more power to purchase than the government. But by so doing, because the government can purchase in volumes that individual companies might not be able to, the government does require some form of a discount. And sometimes the government gets the best deal. Sometimes they get the worst deals. But either ways, it will be purchasing using a GSA for the sole purpose of getting a better deal. The government always claims to be out to get a better deal, but sometimes they get a shitty deal. But now, what is SAM? So you will hear about SAM frequently, so often. So SAM is just the system of award management. This is key because SAM is vital to the whole process of government contracting. SAM is a government-owned database where businesses like myself register with the US government to become a government contractor. And mind you, you cannot become a government contractor of the United States without being registered to SAM. It is mandatory. You cannot. While so many people can access government contracts opportunities, not everybody can bid on a government contract. For you to be able to bid, to have the ability to bid, you have to go through a vetting process and be accepted by the federal government of the United States to become a government contractor. FAR, also known as FAR. This is a federal acquisition regulation. You remember we talked about government contracting being very heavy on rules and regulations, correct? The FAR is just a comprehensive set of rules governing the federal government's procurement process. Meaning the FAR is what governs this whole government contracting process. From what the government should and should not do, and from what contractors should and should not do in light of government contracting. So FAR is very important. Any and every rule we'll be talking about when it comes to government contracting, you're going to keep seeing FAR. FAR is just going to keep appearing there. So it's very important to look out for that. Another term is prime contractor. You remember we talked about different terminologies and probably types of contracts and types of contractors, you know. So a term that would often come across is a prime contractor. So who is a prime contractor? A prime contractor is basically a company that has direct contact with the government to provide its goods or services. So this is a person that has direct access. This is a person, for the most part, that is bidding on the contract itself. This is the person that is awarded the contract. That is the prime contractor. But in the government contracting space, they are often just referred to as a prime. Who is a prime? So a prime is the person that is awarded the contract. Now, who is a subcontractor? A subcontractor is a company that provides goods and services or goods or services to the prime contractor to fulfill some part of the prime contractor's obligations under a government contract. A good example will be what we will be doing and what we will be discussing on. So this is all about the strategy we will be working on. So in our strategy, we will learn more about a prime and a sub and how these two work together to make the middleman process a very profitable and a lucrative one for everybody involved. Another term is a set aside. What is a set aside? Basically, a set aside is a contract or portions of a contract that are reserved exclusively for specific groups. In government contracting, you will see some that are like for women only, some that are for veterans, and some are just for, you know, it is, that's another business, that's another part of government contracting, So these specific rewards or contracts are reserved out for these people just as a means of encouraging them. It's the government's way of acknowledging that these people play a vital role and they are relevant in our economy, whether we like it or not. And sometimes without the assistance of the federal government through government contracting like this, these people would go out of business. And that is not good for anybody. While in the short run, it might be beneficial, in the long run, it might not. Everybody is just like the ecosystem. You take out one thing from the ecosystem, you're not sure what effect it's going to have. In the short term, the effect might be positive, but in the long term, it might be very negative. So the government finds a way of keeping some of these small businesses afloat, So that being said, let's move on. Let's move on. We did talk about NAICS. What is NAICS? What exactly is NAICS? As we mentioned earlier, NAICS is a North American industry classification system. This classification system is used by businesses and the government to recognize business into various industries based on their economic activities. Meaning, for example, not every part of the world does this. This is a very good system in that depending on what activity you provide, say you are a plumber, the government or the NAICS they're going to assign to you 1, 2, 3. So in terms of government contracting, rather than saying, oh, a mechanic, or rather than saying a diesel mechanic, a bodywork expert, people that do bodyworks on cars, a detailer, rather than saying all of that, the government found a way to categorize all these people into one, meaning they just give them that code 1, 2, 3. If you were to type in the code 1 to 3 in a government database such as SAM, it will automatically pull out businesses that fall within these NAICS, meaning their activities are sort of similar. They might not be the same, but they are similar enough that they can be within the same pool, if that makes sense. So NAIC is very important, extremely important for you to be even registered into SAM. You would have to identify what sector the activity or the goods and services you're providing falls under. That's the government's way of saying, oh, I know now this person falls within this pool. So it is basically a standardized method of identifying business establishments by their primary type of economic activity, simply put. And there are some key features that one must note about NAICS. It is basically a hierarchical, they have a hierarchy to them, a hierarchical process. It has a hierarchical structure, basically, meaning the codes have a hierarchical structure that is presented by a series of digits ranging from 2 to 6 digits. Mind you, NAICS does not exceed 6 digits, and it is never a single digit, meaning between 2 to 6 digits right now, that is. For 2-digit sector codes, this is the broadest level there is, meaning the more there are certain companies, businesses that provide a certain provide a certain service or good, because there are so many of them and they are so similar, rather than the government assigning specific NAICS to them, it gives them an umbrella NAICS, meaning it's just a broad NAICS. For example, agriculture. If I'm not mistaken, agriculture should be one of them. Somebody might be planting plantains, and somebody might be growing pigs. Somebody it's a variety. Agriculture goes in so many ways. It might be greenhouse. Just think about it, how broad that is. So rather than assigning every single person that, hey, no, because you are into piggery, you are into poultry, you are into greenhouse, we're going to assign you this NAIC, the government just gives them a single NAIC. So 2 digits are like the broadest category there is. That is the hierarchy we're talking about. Now, when we start talking about 3 digits and 4 digits and 5 digits, 3 digits are subsector codes, meaning within a broader category like the 2 digits, the government can carve out, say, okay, these people, we may want to identify them separately. It assigns them a 3-digit code. Now, 4 digits, these are industry groups. These are industry groups. When you start talking about 5 digits, it's still industry. Now, 6 digits, that's just national. 5 digits is like NAICS industry code, specifically for NAICS, But now when you go into 6 digits, it's just for the entire nation. It covers the entire nation. And like I told you, the NAICS is relevant because, as the name indicates, it's for the entire North America. It's not just the United States. I know most times people hear about the North and people think about just North America. Mind you, Canada is part of North America. There are a lot of other countries in North America. So this NAICS applies to all of North America. And that should just tell you that this simply means the United States government would recognize businesses that are registered in other parts of North America to become parts of SAM. So other countries that are part of the NAICS organization and all of that, they also can become a US government contractor. It's a little bit hectic, but they can do it. So they can become part of government, part of the United States government contractors. And we already established that it is important because basically NAICS provides a consistent framework for economic analysis across the whole of North America. It just facilitates business comparisons and statistical analysis in US, Canada, and Mexico. You know, and these NAICS are updated kind of periodically. It's one of those things that it doesn't require a constant everyday update, because before an update is made, there has to be a lot of effort to it, and it might disrupt a lot of things in the process. So NAICS is not updated that often. Sometimes, last I checked, I think it said it is updated every 5 years or so. So yeah, that's what NAICS is. So now that we've talked about NAIC, why is NAIC so important? We did mention statistical analysis. So the government basically uses NAICS for research. The government agencies and researchers, they use these codes to collect, analyze, and publish statistical data related to the US economy. And we will be looking at that when we get deep into our strategy and how we will be going about that. So market research, businesses as well. It's not just the government that uses NAICS. Also, businesses, they use this information after the government has done its analytical research and all of that. It provides this information. This information is key because businesses can also leverage this information to be competitive and to tailor how they go about their business activities. Also, this is also used for regulatory compliance. Certain regulations apply to specific industries, and the NAICS code helps businesses and the regulatory agencies determine which relationship applies to which business. So that is also key. Most importantly, in our case, government contracting, how is the NAICS important to us? From the definition and all what we've talked about before, the NAICS codes are extensively used in government contracting to classify products and services. So they help the government agencies to issue contracts and set aside for specific types of businesses based on their primary activity, as we talked about earlier. So NAICS is very important to us, extremely important to us, and we will be using it quite significantly. That being said, we've been talking all this while about government contracting. Now it will be important for us to talk about what are some of the benefits of government contracting. Broadly, there are a wide range of benefits, but for the sake of this, let's just try to break them down into two categories. Let's try to do them in non-monetary and monetary benefits. First of all, government contracting, it can come a long way to enhance a business reputation or business credibility. Being a government contractor, it can really, really boost up your image because Think about it. In most countries I know of, who is the number one employer? It is the government, right? And if the government is the number one employer, and the government is mostly the most regulated sector of any economy. So imagine you being approved with a proven track record as a government contractor. That puts some kind of stamp of validation. It puts some kind of stamp of validation because, like I told you, to become a government contractor, you go through some kind of scrutiny. There's some kind of information that you need to provide. The government asks a lot, more than most states would do. It can be a hassle-free process, but it can also be a nightmare, depending on the circumstances. So you just being a government contractor, this can really, really be good for your reputation. Also, it gives you access to new markets. Be you a large enterprise or a sole proprietor, it gives you access to new markets because government contracts can provide businesses with opportunities to enter new markets or sectors where they previously did not even operate in. Because government contract, the government contract field is so broad, as you will come to see, it is unbelievable. So the chances of you staying within a specific lane throughout your career as a government contractor is rare. You find most people, they start branching out, myself inclusive. Also, it provides opportunity for innovation and growth. Innovation and growth. How so? Research, funding, and all of that. Government contract, especially in sectors like defense, technology, and healthcare, even IT. You can obtain funds from the government for research and development. And this can really, really help businesses innovate, because it's not easy, as most people would know, to find fundings for a business. Business funding is not that easy. But if you're already in the government contracting sphere and you are a government contractor, it gives you more avenues to get funding, if that makes any sense. Also, networking. Networking is, I would say, this is the most underrated part of government contracting. Networking, partnerships, because when you participate in government contracts, it can enable you to partner with other companies to meet a specific need. For example, there are certain contracts that we might run into that individually and independently we do not have the capacity to fulfill those contracts. In such cases, you go out into the market and you find other people or people who have the capacity, but they probably did not bid for this. You will be amazed to find that out. This is so true. As lucrative as government contracting can be, a lot of people just don't get into it. As it is weird, a lot of people just don't get into it. There are so many big businesses that don't even know what a government contract is, and they don't even care, to say the least. So they don't even want to know about it. Rightfully so. In this case, a small business like myself, I get into it, but now I'm a little bit over my head. But that doesn't mean I should just abandon the contract. That shouldn't mean I shouldn't venture into it. But it just means I have to look for people that have this ability or that have the capacity to handle such a request, and then partner up with these people. And at the end of the day, everybody's happy. And if you get this kind of relationship and everything moves smoothly, think about it. You just made a friend. If you call on these people down the line again, the chances of them saying yes is very high. So Now, down the line, you start looking out for such contract opportunities because you've built a reputation, a good reputation with somebody that you can always partner with. And it is mutually beneficial. So it's something to keep an eye on. Also, compliance. Compliance and compatibility improvement. This is another one. As the name would state, compliance is very key because imagine you being in the government contracting space. For you to win a government contract, as heavily regulated as they are, with so many rules, of what you should do, how you should go about certain things, believe it or not, you become familiar, how to comply, with certain needs, be them governmental needs or just needs of your clients. It helps you improve. There are certain government compliance needs that you might just look at and you say, yo, I might very well implement this in my business. Mind you, the government has unlimited budget, meaning they have much money, they can do more research than you can. But think about it. If they have already spent all this money to do this research and found out that, hey, this is really good and this can really, really help our agencies be productive, what stops you from adopting that? You might not have the money to do that research, but I've already done it for you. So that is a non-monetary advantage. Now let's talk about the interesting part, as most of you are, because myself, just dollar signs all over my head. The monetary aspect of it. Getting into this space, believe it or not, if you do it right, it can serve as a stable source of revenue, in the sense that government contract can really, really, really be a good source of income. Once a government contract is awarded, the government is committed to paying you. Meaning, if you deliver, the government will pay you. And as we know, nobody pays like the government. The government is the best client you can have. They pay on time, believe it or not. They pay on time. So that can provide financial stability, And also, there is a potential for long-term contracts. As we will be seeing later on, right? You will see contracts that go way in. Contracts that really go in, like 5 years, 6 years. I think the most I've seen is 5 years, but yes, you have contracts that go 5 years. So imagine you get into a contract that you are guaranteed for the next 5 years, the government is going to pay you a certain amount of money. Whether you like it or not, that is good, And like I mentioned earlier, the government pays on time. Nobody pays like the government. If you do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, hey, that check comes through, And also, as we talked about, the set aside for small businesses. The government helps small businesses stay in the market, in the economy, because it values them. So through government contracting, the government can give them a handout, like, hey, we see you and we think you are relevant. So there you go. Now that we've talked about all of that, it is important for us to get into the meat of it. This is the interesting part for me. Middleman. Middleman. That is why we are all here, and this is where I want us to pay particular attention to. The middleman strategy. So, for lack of a better word, who is a middleman? In general, who is a middleman? You guessed it right. A middleman is somebody in the middle. Well, jokes aside and everything, a middleman in government contracting, right, is that person that stands in between, for lack of a better word. He is either a broker or a prime contractor. You get, he is a broker, a facilitator, or a consultant, or an advisor to the government contract. So, clearly, as we've established, a middleman can be either the prime contractor, he can be a broker, or he can be a consultant. In our case, we will be the prime. In this case that we're talking about, we're going to be the prime. And basically, what is the middleman strategy? What is a middleman strategy when it comes to government contracting? The middleman strategy is very straightforward. So the federal government, as we know, puts out a solicitation. What did we say solicitation was? This is the request the government puts for goods or services. When the government puts in that solicitation, now what happens is we go in there, we look at it, and we analyze it. We ask ourselves, hey, can we meet this need, or do we know how to go about meeting this government need? Once we have established all of that, which we will do, and we will see later on, what do we do now? We say, okay, I do know A, B, C, and D. Can I go into the economy, into the market at large, and see if I can find somebody who can meet this need? So in this case, we are not just a prime, as you can see, we are at the same time a facilitator. We are facilitating the government getting that need or that service or that good met. That is where we go now into the market. We find somebody that can do it, and then we hire them. That person is known as a subcontractor. That person is known as a subcontractor. So we are the prime, meaning we go in and we bid for that contract. We win the contract. The government knows us, not the subcontractor. We are the people in the middle. The government speaks to us, and then we speak to the subs. So we are the prime. Remember, I did tell you we're going to run into this word again. We are the prime. So the middleman serves as a prime contractor who secures contract with the government and then outsources portions of the work to subcontractors. This strategy, the middleman strategy we're talking about, it allows the prime contractor to leverage specialized skills and capabilities of subcontractors to fulfill the contract requirements. It is common, this is very common in complex projects where you have somebody doing, let's say, in a construction or real estate contract. You might just have somebody supplying the metal, you have somebody supplying the plywood, you have somebody doing the concrete. Hey, at the end of the day, if you can get all of these people together, the government just wants the job done. The government just wants the job done. It just wants this need or this good provided at the end of the day. Meaning, as long as you stick within the guidelines and you deliver to the government is good. And what are the benefits? What are some of the benefits of a prime contractor? He can manage and coordinate the project, ensuring compliance, like we talked about, while the subcontractors just do what they want to do. So The prime takes out the hassle of regulations from the subcontractor. The subcontractor is just somebody with his skills. That's why most, like I told you, like I talked about, most companies are not government contractors. There is just a lot of rules and regulations. They don't want to deal with this. It's just too much of a hassle. So this is where we come in as a middleman. We take away all that stress of worrying about the rules and regulations. We will deal with that. And why you just go ahead and do you. Just do you. We're going to handle all of this and then just do you. You get? Just do you. So, who then is a subcontractor? And why are they so beneficial to us? Who is a subcontractor? A subcontractor in government contracting is an individual or a business that contracts with a prime. That contracts with a prime to perform portions of a work or the work required under a government contract, as we establish. So they basically work for us, the middleman, who is the prime. Now, this is the most important part of it. This is the most important. This is where all the magic happens. This is where all the magic happens. All the magic happens here. SAM.gov. This is where everything takes place. SAM.gov. What is SAM.gov? As you will come to see, there is nothing, we can't do anything in government contracting without SAM.gov. SAM.gov is an official website where the US government consolidates several federal procurement services. So all of it falls under this umbrella. Whether it wants a defense project, it wants a janitorial service, or any procurement that you can think of. If the government is sending out a solicitation, it is in SAM.gov. So this is like a one bus stop. This is like where everything comes together. So in SAM.gov, you get to do business registration. It's where you find contract opportunities. You would go in there to check on different government entities and exclusion, even disaster response. It is a lot. But because it is a lot, it is key to stay updated, because it is easy to just get lost in the hay. And what is also good about SAM.gov is they do provide trainings on there. As we would see, maybe down the line, some of you will need to take some of this training. Most of these trainings are free. The government has a need, believe it or not, this need needs to be met. So it is doing everything within its power to empower the general public to help it. So it's provided trainings for free. And also, it is pretty helpful, meaning if you reach out, the chances of you getting a response is very high. In case you're in doubt, you just reach out, and the chances of you getting somebody to assist you is really, 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 really high. So it is something to look out for. It is something to look out for. Now, what are some of the metrics we should look at? How can you be successful in this space? What does it entail to be a successful middleman? In my case, for the little I have come to know, I would say patience. Because the honest truth is, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. As you would find out. You will come to find out that if it was easy, everybody would do it. But sadly enough, it is not easy. But believe me, it is very doable. With the right frame of mind, it is very doable, meaning you have to have a winning mindset. Keep a winning mindset at all times. As challenging as it is, that sometimes you just have to wait. You just have to wait. Because imagine you going out there and trying to reach out to subcontractors. You cannot force subcontractors to respond to you. Meaning you reach out to them and you just play the waiting game. Even if you call them, sometimes you call them, they pick up the phone and they tell you they're going to get back to you. You just have to be patient. You might lose a couple of them, but when you get into that winning streak, it is worth it, believe it or not. Also, what is very vital is attention to detail. This is very key. As we mentioned about the FAR is very important because in every government contract, there are certain rules and regulations that need to be met. And there are certain details that you need to pay attention to, failure of which it can really hamper your progress. So just go through the information keenly. Look out for the little quirks. You will see them. But we will look all of that down in. Also, proactiveness. You need to be proactive in so many ways, meaning you have to reach out. Like I mentioned earlier, reach out to the subcontractor, ask for updates, even reach out to some of the point of contacts for certain contracts. Ask questions, anticipate what your challenges are. Look at the contract in its entirety, but this also comes with experience. So sometimes if you're just starting off, if you're just green, you might not have a lot of experience to anticipate some of the challenges you can face. But believe me, after one or two failures, you can start anticipating what challenges you might run into and how to circumvent them. And communication is very vital. Communication in the sense that it's not just about you and your team. It is communication between you and every other aspect of the contract you are engaging on. Meaning from the subcontractors to the contract, to the contact, the point of contact for said contracts. You have to be in the loop. You have to ask questions, respond to questions, because there are times when you will put in a bid and the government is going to come back asking you for more documentation. They might ask you for more information. You have to be on the beat. You have to be there to answer these questions on time and make sure you've done your due diligence before you are responding. Just don't be in a haste. Take your time and make sure you are responding as correctly as possible. And what is also key is relationships, as we mentioned. Relationships. You need to network. It is in government contracting, it's not all about what you know, but most importantly, who you know. For example, we're talking about point of contact. Once you do a contract and you get a point of contact, you already have this person, you've already spoken to this person. This person becomes an ally. So leverage it. You can apply for a government contract and you don't win the bid, but now you have a point of contact. You can reach out to that point of contact and ask him, hey, are there any other opportunities within your agency that I can possibly be a good fit for? That is also a possibility. So you just have to build relationships, even with individuals within the government contracting sphere. This will really, 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 really help you. Listen, there are so many of them, but these are just the key ones that I really felt like stood out to me and that we have to take keen attention to, such as leveraging technology. Now we have AI. AI can make life very simple, but we're going to see all of that way into it. So I think this has been long enough. Let's end this here. And next, let's get into the meat itself. Enough with all the presentation. Let's do something that is fun. Let's get dirty, let's get our hands dirty. All right. See you in the next one.